What up? We're back. Welcome back. We're the Bourbon Junkies. Cookie, say hi. Got him. Today we're going to talk.
All they can hear is
That's true.
of the mic.
Today we're going to talk about the future of whiskey and the current state of whiskey and how things are going in whiskey.
Intro.
All right. So
Okay.
listen.
We got a couple things that we want to talk to you guys about. What, the state of whiskey currently
Whiskey's wild
in the future. Oh, he's back.
Whiskey's in like a very different place than it was 2 years ago.
Gonna have to close the door.
If we just get up here, just be a part of it. Just have a three-way.
Pricing?
So whiskey a couple years ago, we'll call it pre-vid.
Okay, first off, let's just tell the people what we're gonna talk about.
We're going to talk about...
Lay out our categories.
We're going to do a real quick TLDR on pre-vid whiskey. Where it was, where it's at now, meaning allocation and pricing, distillery releases, camping out, so on and so forth. How distilleries are handling that.
Yep.
Are consumers tired of chasing bottles and hunting and distillery releases and one-offs and high prices and so on and so forth?
And then the future.
The future.
Let's just talk about the future.
What people are
In
doing.
a broad sense.
What people are doing now to prepare for, in theory, what's going to happen.
Don't do it. I saw him looking right at that board.
We has half of a frame and no English. Gosh dang it. Well, I'm gonna drink Matt Porter's.
You think so?
I'm gonna drink Matt Porter's ADHD whiskey blend from that he did with Bardstown. That's what I'm drinking. Sean's drinking.
I got a Buffalo Trace store pick because just 90 little proofer. Can't wait.
Yeah. So, needless to say.
Okay, let's talk about
snuggle in
pre-vid whiskey, as you would say.
The pre-vid whiskey.
Pre-vid whiskey. Abundant,
and come to find out, secondary very reasonable in those days.
People weren't clearing the shelves of just like normal bottles, ECBP, stuff like that.
No.
Where now people are clearing any and everything.
People are clearing shelves at Eagle Rare now.
Yeah.
Like $30 bottles of whiskey.
And that was our gas station whiskey here. And now it is basically allocation.
And I think it's one of these things where you and I used to talk about from time to time secondary. Like we used to do secondary videos. Like this is how much we put a bottle of Blanton's here and it was $50 and secondary is $120 and how much would we pay? We can't even do those videos anymore.
No.
Because it's just like we wouldn't pay that, we wouldn't pay that, we wouldn't pay that, we wouldn't pay that, and we're done.
We both have a pretty hard line of around $300 on a lot of bottles.
Close,
and there are so many normal releases that sell for over $300 now. Allocations didn't really change. Pricing changed a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think what happened was a lot of people were bored in present vid or current or whatever during vid. And then when I like our time frames, all we have to do is add vid to them.
Yep.
But a lot of people started drinking whiskey and finding out they liked whiskey, and there's a lot of new people in the market for whiskey and whatever. And then people found out that they could make money on it by going and buying a $40 bottle of Elmer. And Elmer was hard to find.
Yes.
3 years ago, it was already hard to find.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I haven't seen one in 3 years though. Now,
Over.
So it became way harder to find. And now looking back, secondary on some of these bottles, secondary on Elmer is like $120.
Yeah,
that's a steal on Elmer now.
And if you think you walk into a store and you're like $120, ooh, I'd probably pay it.
Yeah, now today.
Yeah.
If you saw, and now on secondary it's $400. Yeah. So this is what happened in the past 3 years. Realistically, is whiskey skyrocketed, things became much harder to find, and things became far more expensive when you found them. So that to segue into the allocation and pricing discussion of current day, when you see Elmer, Sean just saw Elmer in a store.
It was $700.
And he had 3 of them or whatever?
Yeah.
So that's been allocated to the store by a distributor.
But they're just following secondary pricing now.
Yeah. And
so they see all these people making the money and they say, well, why would I sell it to you for anything close to a normal price? Yeah. And then I know you're going to go home and sell it. And then you're going to make all that money illegally.
People are willing to pay it in theory.
Yeah. So all these stores have just followed that pricing model of, okay, if you're going to jack up the price, I can do that legally as well.
And they can actually do it legally.
Yeah, well, legally.
No, but I mean, that's the argument, right? Is let's say that you just fully wanted to stay away from all illegal transactions in the world of whiskey. Your only option at that point is to then pay those secondary prices.
100%.
Almost every store, period, like know the owner or not, but almost every store now, there is some markup on some allocated whiskey. Like you could be, and it just comes down to probably some form of capitalism where it's like, the store owner's losing money by
That's
not
just
charging
capitalism.
more. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just out money. Like, hey man, I could have sold the Georgia cheesesteak for $800, but I sold it for $300, which is still a 3x markup.
Yeah.
But
everyone would be tripping over themselves right now to pay $300 for a Georgia cheesesteak.
There'd be a line out the door for a $300 Georgia cheesesteak right now.
You can run a raffle for that.
But the store owner still lost $500 at that point.
Yeah.
Like literally.
Oh, they're over $1,000 now.
Basically, pricing is wild right now.
100%.
Everywhere.
From the consumer going to the store, wild. Consumer trying to buy, secondary, and it's not super legal, but people are on secondary.
It's real. It doesn't have to be legal.
Super high.
Real. Yeah.
Everything through the roof that we're talking about, that a normal bottle entry to market, 60 to 80 is normal.
We were talking, that's a good point. That's a really good point. I personally think current entry on a bottle, if you're a new brand, your entry right now is around $70.
Yeah.
Pricing.
We keep saying that, like, man, this would be great if it was, $30, $40 because you're a brand new young distillate or something like that. But they got to sell it at $50, $60 to cover a lot of cost. Plus that is just the entrance. Everything is so much more expensive now.
Well, there's a barrel shortage. There's a barrel head glue shortage that you can look it up. I swear to God, that's real. We've heard that from a very, very credible source. Mm-hmm. There is a whiskey shortage, if realistically, to some
for a little bit.
There's aged whiskey
shortage. For a
shortage.
little bit, because a lot of people started dumping a while ago or like distilling more. But
from a sourcing perspective, there's a shortage of aged whiskey.
Yeah.
People can buy new make right now. Mm-hmm. You're not buying 10 to 12-year-old whiskey from Barton or MGP. That's not a thing.
You're buying it from brokers,
right? And you can spend
a lot of money,
and that's why some premium bottles cost $200 to $500 right now.
Yep,
because those barrels literally cost them a ton of money. Mm-hmm. So yeah, pricing's wild, completely out of hand. It does suck for the store owners because if they don't upcharge, they're losing money. If they do upcharge, or if they don't upcharge again, then
they're getting posted on socials.
Exactly.
Look at what this asshole's charging.
If you do upcharge, 100% that's happening. Yeah. And then on top of that, if they don't upcharge, then Joe Blow walks in just trying to make money, not drink the bottle of whiskey, and he upcharges on secondary illegally. It's a shit show.
I just offer people way less money, and I'll open it in the store. They sell it to me.
Yeah, and that's one of the things for sure.
Like hey, I'm not going to sell it. I'll open it right in front of you.
Different topic for that could be a whole video on its own. I feel like we haven't done that in a long time, but like the relationship with your store owner, your local store. Mm-hmm. We're at legitimately family with ops is a family, right? So it's different. But when we weren't family with ops, one of the bottles we got was we'll open it right now.
Oh yeah, we share that.
Yep. And share it. When we'll share it with you, you can have whatever. But okay, so then moving on.
Go ahead.
To
after me.
How distilleries are no. After me, sir. Distilleries combating pricing and how they're moving and changing and switching.
Are they?
They could be if they wanted to.
They're not.
To some extent. Mm. It depends. This is the thing we talked about briefly in the Old Forester video.
Okay.
They can hold more stock back for distillery release.
They can.
Which they have control over pricing on.
Yep. 100%.
If they choose to. 100% decision making.
I mean, look at how President's Choice is released. There's only a couple cases put out to stores, and then it's mostly all distillery only.
Yes.
We've seen that Old Forester, now Four Roses, some other places are doing lotteries for their LEs. Yeah. Which we already did a whole video on. Yeah. We're kind of for it. Mm-hmm. In that video, what we said is everyone, you do your lottery. If that person doesn't show up and get it, it should go into stock into the distillery, and then they get to sell it at their SRP, whatever, which is usually not the secondary markup. Yeah. So I think that would be cool. I would like to see more LEs drop that way.
Yeah, me too.
As someone that doesn't live in Kentucky, I think it increases a lot of people's odds.
And one of the things that we talked about was the fact that it gives them the control. They get to take the control back because after they sell to a distributor, they have significantly less control than they had.
Pretty much zero.
If they sell to a distributor and buy back to their distillery, now they're also the retailer, so therefore they're making the decision on final consumer pricing.
But when it goes to a distributor to go to stores get favoritism. Yes. It goes back to that allocation thing, and then those people with the allocations can charge more. Yeah. It's a whole
system.
Yeah,
that's our
it's a sinkhole.
It's disaster. The 3-tier system seems very hit or miss, heavy on a lot of missing and sometimes hitting.
Yeah,
but. One of the things, like you mentioned, was the Four Roses thing. So this year, birthday bourbon, this was a big deal because birthday bourbon, they hadn't done it like this before. People camp out for whiskey. It's just a thing happening.
Oh, yeah.
Four Roses just did a huge release. It's like a 16-year, 6-month release. for the Kentucky flood victims.
Oh, okay.
So they did this, I think, a week or 2 weeks ago, probably 3 weeks by the time this video's out. Anyways, there were people that had camped out overnight for the bottle. A 16-year-old Four Roses was $200 at the distillery.
Okay.
That
Sounds
seems...
good. Yeah, very reasonable.
From a value perspective, that seems incredible. $200 bottle of whiskey to be 16 years old, and bourbon is huge, right?
Yeah.
People were complaining about people camping out and how people hate that and it bothers them. I'll never comprehend the idea of caring about how somebody else spends their time if they have the time to spend and the money to spend, right? What I can comprehend is...
Because those people see it as a bottle that they could have had because those people are... in that place that they can spend the time.
So they're in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Right. So you went, now here's the thing. That doesn't actually negatively impact everybody because not everybody's willing to drive or close enough to drive to Kentucky or fly to Kentucky.
Yeah.
If I lived in Alaska.
And not everyone's willing to camp out for days for that stuff.
That's true. Not everybody's willing to. Now, if I lived in Alaska, there's a good chance if Old Forester emailed me and said you won the opportunity to buy a birthday bourbon, I wouldn't be going to Kentucky. You know what I mean? So it doesn't affect everybody. That's why I actually think they figured out a nice middle ground of this affects the people close here. It benefits and impacts people very close to the state, not the distillery necessarily. And on top of that, what it allows people to do is allows you and I to have a chance to buy one from them that they price. They price them at $150. Old Forester birthday bourbons from the distillery
$150. Speculation right now. We need to see how the next couple releases get handled from different distilleries to see how either some do it better, some do it worse, what they're doing with leftover allocation, stuff like that.
Yeah, the leftover, because there's got to be some. There's no way. There's never going to be 100% people that want to show up ever. The Four Roses LE I signed up for, got the email literally this morning that I did not win.
Good job.
So I'm not allowed to buy one. Yeah. Now, it will be interesting to see how 90% of people came and picked their bottles up.
Yep.
Those 10% have to do, they don't want to lose. There's no reason for them to not sell them.
Okay. And then now do you think people are getting burnt out, the consumer themselves are getting burnt out of all the LE drops,
100%.
all the brand new things? There's 1,000 new distilleries. There are a bunch of new limiteds. There are a bunch of places just sourcing old whiskey, putting it in a fancy bottle, and then doing huge markups on them.
Yeah.
There's always a new unicorn to chase on this.
Yeah. I think that one of the things from a consumer
burnout,
from a consumer perspective, I think that we have more options than we've ever had, at least since you and I started drinking whiskey.
Oh,
without
I think
a doubt.
Tenfold.
You and I go into like a Total Wine in Kentucky or a liquor barn.
Oh God.
I've never seen more labels in my life. Right?
Labels I've never heard of, bottles I've never seen, bottle shapes I've never seen, just so many different things.
Most of them, I think in my head, in my brain, from the consumer standpoint is, if you want market entry to be around $70, I don't think people want that. But if it is what it is, that's not a controllable thing from a consumer standpoint. If the current market entry is $70, so Frank August comes out 70, Hidden Barn comes out 70, Blue Runs, you can get them in Kentucky for 80 now. There's a lot of newer brands in these price ranges, without a doubt. It's not hard to find. The Red Cardinals or Cardinal Spirit stuff.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Nulu bumped their pricing up.
Oh, they're
Penelope's
expensive.
are in the 60 to 70 range. It's endless right now in the $70 price range. It's an endless list.
I think that's the old, what used to, in our mind, be the 40 to 60 price range is now bumped up to that 60 to 80.
100%.
Everything's just shifted up in the last 2 years.
And I think if it's going to be there, then what's going to happen is people are far less interested in trying new things that aren't transparent.
Yeah.
Right? Literally, you and I could go to Kentucky right now because there's a lot of whiskey in Kentucky we don't have. Labels,
100%.
Random labels, right? You and I could walk into Party Source, whatever.
We could fill out a year of releases, I bet, on bottles we've never heard.
Off their shelves.
And most people probably have never heard of.
And I, as a consumer, from a consumer standpoint, I have no interest in spending $70 on something that has no information on the label.
Yeah.
No what state it's from, what age it is. You get a proof because legally you have to. It says produced by on the back, which means jack shit in the world of whiskey. You don't know
a lot of creative wording.
And then on top of that, then everything becomes, it's all just sourced MGP at this point, and you haven't done anything to make it different. This is
in about 3 years, you'll see it's all sourced Bardstown.
Right. And the problem isn't that it's all being sourced from one spot. The reason that seemingly Penelope seems to be exploding, they're just doing things that are different. They have a 4 grain. It's all MGP.
Well, that's also coming down to the people that are putting it in the bottle.
100%,
What they're doing to get it into the bottle.
The curation.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot that goes into the blending and whatnot.
True. Or the toasting or the finishing. Yeah. Foregate isn't buying whiskey that nobody's ever had before. Yeah. Foregate's doing really cool shit with the whiskey they're buying. Yeah. So is Penelope. Penelope's doing the same. Penelope's toasting, doing different toasts, different char levels, doing the Architect series. Yep. There's just, you can
and they
do
already have 3 of those builds out.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I think from a consumer standpoint, personally, I'm sick of like seeing a label, it having nothing interesting on it in relevance to where it's from or what
the non-inventive cookie cutter, it's from MGP. Yeah.
Hey man,
bottle.
That's cool that you just marked up a 5-year MGP to $100.
Yep.
But, or even, hey, there's a 5-year, it just says 5 years old and I don't know what state it's even from. That's insane to me. I think from a consumer standpoint, that is over the top. There's so many, those are just cash grabs, right? Yeah. I think we can all agree. Though it's a cash grab.
So many of them right
There's
now.
a million. Yeah. There's a cash grab to throw a label on a bottle of whiskey, source it from who the F knows where, and just call it good.
That's not even talking about most celebrity whiskeys.
That's literally not, that's leaving those out.
That's
and a bunch could be included in there.
We'll glaze over those. Some are good, some are bad, but whatever.
Some are good for real.
So what do you think the future of bourbon being?
I think, okay, so current things that are hot right now, right? Single barrels are hot.
100%.
Like barrel picks.
Oh, God, yeah.
Without a doubt.
Everyone chases single barrels. Like, I mean, there's entire secondary groups that are dedicated to just picks.
True. I mean, we do a bunch. We do a bunch. And it's fun for us. People seem to like them. I think
we like them. I mean, we're not saying that we don't like them. Single barrels are awesome. Like you find some very, very unique expressions of labels, which is indefinitely cool.
Yeah, and to that, I think that's actually what I was about to say. Is I think what whiskey drinkers aren't burnt out on, what they want is just a different experience, right? Like the reason that, like, let's say you and I don't have the channel and we don't need to review all these bottles because we have a lot of whiskey because we need to review whiskey, right?
Yeah.
If we don't need to review all these bottles, what you and I go after is just a different experience of things we know we like. Yep. We like 1792. That's cool. Let's try a barrel pick of it because it'll be different than the last 1792. All we want is a new
how many bottle
experience.
And bond picks did you have?
Exactly. We just want new experiences. Yeah. That's the reason people have lots of collections or whatever for new experiences. I think that everybody is laying down the most whiskey ever. Bardstown's buying everything under the sun they can legally buy.
Bardstown is about the size of Kentucky now, it feels. Yeah. I mean, them buying Green River.
Yep.
And expanding their contract distillation capacity there is huge. Ross and Squibb will always be Ross and Squibb, and the quantities that they're putting out. There is now a distillery in like every state in the United States. It's just booming. There is alcohol everywhere.
The craft boom happened a handful of years ago, and now it's really cool because we get to see so much good whiskey come out of there.
Yeah, a lot of companies come to age.
Yeah, which some were rough at startup. Yeah. And that's just part of it. It is, right?
That's why it was a lot of fun back in the day when craft whiskey was still cheap and the market entry was that cheap 30 to 50. And we were like, you know what? 30 to 50, I'll buy a couple releases, see where this goes. New Riff is one that when they first came out, we were like, okay, it's a little young. Sure. There was like a 3 or 4 year product. We're like, okay, it's not bad. Now, I mean, the malted rye was like 6 years last year. And that was one of our favorite bottles of last year.
Ridiculous whiskey.
Yeah, they're doing great things. There's a lot of, I still consider them craft. There's so many young craft distilleries that are on the come up. And it's just unfortunate that they're in this time period of your market entry means so much more now than it ever did.
It does. And your releases have to hit because the legacy distilleries, when everybody else raised their prices, didn't have to. So
I think there will be a lot of places kind of floundering now.
Oh,
like I think we're
some smaller brands.
Yeah, I think we're in that spot now that you either come out with some really good stuff or you just kind of
fade out.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't think about like smaller brands. The thing is smaller brands can include craft distilleries and NDPs, right? So a non-distilling producer would be like somebody who sources whiskey, blends it or something, or there's lots of NDPs. Penelope's an NDP, Nulu's an NDP, the Carters have been an NDP, Fourgate's an NDP. Like there's tons of examples of NDPs. It'll be interesting to see because some of those NDPs who haven't either started distilling themselves or have contract distilling are running out of aged whiskey, and it's not a buyable. It used to just be buy more.
Yeah,
it's not anymore.
It's a tough market.
That's interesting to think about. Like I never really thought about.
I think the future is
fading out.
Bleak for some smaller distilleries.
It's possible,
unfortunately, just like some points that you touched on earlier, the barrel shortage, like the all that stuff drives that cost up.
Yeah. Ooh, whiskey barrels cost more than they've ever cost.
Which in turn, it costs you more, costs them more, costs everyone more. So, and if it's not, you're not putting out a product that people are buying in mass.
Yeah.
Your profit margins go thinner and thinner. So
I think in my head, we're ushering in a new generation of whiskey drinkers. There's a lot of people who drank whiskey during vid.
Yeah.
And when they drank it, not all of them were, in their 30s, 40s, 50s. A lot of them were in their 20s.
Yeah.
I think that we at some point have to usher in a new generation of whiskey drinkers. I think the new generation of whiskey drinkers, for the most part, is a very harsh generalization, want transparency, don't care as much about a really long historical backlog of dates and names. And I just think that...
And whose grandpappy started doing what out of a shoe and found...
down by a river somewhere in a van with Chris Farley. I don't...
There's a grizzly bear in there too, I'm pretty sure.
I think that we need to usher in this new generation of whiskey drinkers. I think that one way that happens is everything's a new experience.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a place for like Jack Black labels in the normal shelf products.
Yeah.
But I think new experiences with transparency is how that becomes... That needs to be the norm.
So people are caring less about the label and what's actually in the bottle
Well,
itself.
if you're going to charge me more money for it, then tell me about it. Yeah. I don't have a problem paying more for it.
Yeah.
What I have a problem with is paying more for something I have no idea if I'm going to like at all. People don't... The first whiskey you buy wasn't $100. No. The first whiskey you bought was $20 or $30, right?
It was not great.
The first when you found the first $20 to $30 bottle of whiskey you liked, was when you decided that you wanted the next step of something better.
You would then spend more on something.
And when you went to spend more, if it didn't say what it was, then you had no freaking clue if you're going to like it. That's not acceptable. And what that's going to do is push whiskey drinkers out of the market.
Okay.
I think that it's just, that's all bullshit. And the lying and all that stuff. I think that needs to go away. There needs to be a new era of just transparency, of all of that. I think the single barrel trend stays. I think blending
100%. I don't think single barrels ever go away.
No.
Why? Single barrels are way too cool, and it's not even like the popular thing.
Right.
Like,
we're past trend. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's just there to stay because it's way too freaking cool to go and like not even pick a single barrel. Even having a single barrel, you're like, there'll never be another one of these. I have one of these. It's cool. I like this bottle a lot.
They're not a fad.
It'll make me go buy more Buffalo Trace single barrels because I like them.
They're not. That's a fad. I think is a trend that leaves. Right.
Yeah.
That's what. So they're not single barrels have been around for too long. There's gonna be a lot of whiskey in the future. We all know this. This is how it works. Everybody's
Buffalo Trace didn't put down $1 billion of capital to expand because they thought the market was shrinking.
100%. My one hope is that because everybody's making more whiskey, everyone is making more whiskey. We have not. We've been on how many picks to how many distilleries? We haven't heard one time somebody say we're reeling it back.
Yeah,
we haven't heard that yet, right? So
everyone's talking about how they need more help.
More stills, more buildings, more
everything,
employees,
more everything.
Here's my hope. My one hope. I do hope so badly.
Your one hope. Take your one shot here,
all that happened. If I was Eminem, right?
One shot. One opportunity.
This every distillery has too much whiskey in the future.
Okay.
Right? They then want some cash back on their whiskey.
Okay.
They start wholesaling.
Oh.
Brands that don't wholesale now start wholesaling just because they know they can, and they have. We don't need to make more Buffalo Trace this month because every shelf is stocked.
It's never going to happen.
Right?
It's never going to happen.
And then they go, we could actually just throw some up to some brokers, wholesale it.
Hey, buddy.
And then NDPs are granted access to more distilleries than they've ever been granted.
That's not a hope, that's a dream.
That would be awesome, though. That'd be very beautiful.
That's a dream.
That'd be cool.
All right, let us know what you guys think we missed, what we did cover you liked or you didn't like. Let us know in the comments below. But we're the Bourbon Junkies.
We are.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Do those things.
30 minutes later, we'll say that. Proof's in the pour.
That'll be like a nice solid 21-minute video. Mark my words.
Yes.